Hi everyone, Mireya here. Makes me laugh because this is the first time I've done something like this. Um, I don't know, as I was writing the newsletter that I usually do, I realized that with the current times and so many people in the homes and um, yeah, that I just felt a need to be a little closer to you. And so I decided to do it by voice instead of you having to read a whole thing. And yeah, so I'm just situated sitting here in the valley of Santa Ynez in California. As some of you know, I haven't had a home for the past 7 months. And in the middle of all the craziness with the coronavirus, I had just arrived in the Bay Area to teach a workshop and do some personal work. I had an Airbnb set up, and then this whole thing exploded and had to cancel everything. And so, fortunately, I have a really dear friend who offered a space she has here where I can be until this whole thing gets clear and all of that. So, I feel, in spite of the incredible uncertainty that we all are living in, that my life is in, um, it's such a blessing to have a space that I can land in, and I'm grateful for that. And this is allowing me to just really sink deeply into contemplation um, while also feeling all that is happening in the outer world. And as you can hear it, probably just enjoying the sound of birds and the sky and really bringing my own nervous system to, which is kind of paradoxical because the whole world nervous system is in such change right now and activation. um, but I have to say mine has been on such activation for the last 7 months that it's just really soothing to actually have a place where it can calm down and really hold all of it, all the pieces of what's happening out there while also continuing to do my own work. And so that's why I also wanted to do this video. There is a remarkable configuration sky story that we're sitting in these days, and that inspired me to want to speak to you. We're inside of a portal window. Um, with the equinox having happened on the 19th, and for those that have the question, it's not always on the 21st. This year was on the 19th. And then the new moon is happening on the 24th. We have a new moon in Aries coming up. And so I just, there's so much out there right now in terms of what's happening with coronavirus, and so many perspectives from the controversial ones, from the mainstream news that we're bombarded with, to the conspiracy theory ones, to the big, beautiful light ones that bring the big learning, the big picture. So there's so much out there, helpful tools of what to do, all of that. So I felt like I didn't want to repeat all that. Nor do I want to say that I'm ignoring the challenges and the that a lot of people are directly experiencing out there in the world, especially those that have gotten ill or have had loved ones already pass, or the first responders having to do work in the trenches, helping with services of all kinds. Mothers, fathers, parents in the homes with the children. I mean, there's so many layers to this. The ones holding the light, the possibility, the prayer. So many of us seeing the changes already happening, and really seeing the power of this portal. But I wanted to hone into the astrology of this week, because I find that when we're going through massive collective portals, there's something about focusing and honing in these um, windows, focused windows that life is giving us, and that sometimes we don't even know about. And so, starting with the equinox, as you know, some of you know, the equinox speaks about, astronomically, it's that moment of the perfect balance between light and dark. It is exact day and night, and so that's the kind of it's the movement from Pisces to Aries astrologically from signs. And I one thing I was reflecting on as I was part of another group and we were in that exploration, was the power that the invitation that the equinox is, whether you're in the fall equinox or the spring. The spring is bringing the new birth, the new beginning, right? The possibility of birth. And the fall is bringing the shedding, the letting go. And so that really is the cycle of rebirth, isn't it? The we don't rebirth, we don't begin the new if we don't shed. And so the interconnection between these two is so powerful. And then the invitation to really find the balance that we can find when we really embrace dark and light, and the power of doing that, the power of the learnings that we get from the dark, from the challenging explorations, and from the light that lives inside of the dark. And I've been having very deep explorations with the dark in the last 7 months, and slowly starting now to emerge from this place, or at least get a new vista. And one of the big learnings I've gotten is the incredible compassion that is required to hold those tender parts of us, of the collective, of society, with love, with compassion, as we can usher them into the new and into the future. Sometimes I find that we can, as the new begins, we can, just be in that expansion, and which is also beautiful and needed. And the call forward, the call for the new, the call for the new world in this time, the call for the new places inside of us, all of it very important. And we can't do it if we don't fully acknowledge um, what we've seen, in the journeys into the dark, what we've learned, those places that have been bruised, that have been broken or hurting, or and the power that there is when we become our own midwives into the light, carrying all the vulnerability, all that we have learned, um, all um, that makes the wholeness of who we are as humans. I've been thinking a lot of the metaphor of that some others also speak about is nothing new, but how we're in this big metaphor of rebirth as a collective. And, for any of us that have witnessed an actual birth, the process of the birth is so this constant expansion and contraction, expansion and contraction. And in the middle of those, the moments where the fetus, the baby, stands still for the next round to come, there's a pause. There's a moment where the whole nervous system, the breath can pause, the mother, the child, for the next round. Um, and it feels like during these times, it's so important to find those places of the pause, find those places of the in between where we can take a breath, where we can have a phone call with a loved one, where if we are living with someone, we can have a hug with someone that we know, and that the social distancing has been in connection for all the time. Um, and I find that coming back to the equinox invites that, how can we find that still point, that point of pause, that point of beingness in the middle of that balance of light and dark. And these times are really asking us to dance between these worlds. For some of us, some are might find themselves in one side, some in the other, but that we really are getting an invitation from the collective to truly embrace the fullness, the wholeness. Um, and then the other remarkable configuration that we have, and that right now in the next few days, um, let me just look at my map here because I want to name it exactly as it is. I wish I could show you the chart with the camera, but I'm not as sophisticated technologically. But there is an incredible conjunction. Conjunction in astrology means that the planets are together and they're close enough by degree that they are, within a very small distance. And right now we have four planets in Capricorn: Jupiter, Mars, Pluto, and Saturn. They are in a very, what we call astrologically, a very tight conjunction. And this is something that will not occur and has not occurred in thousands of years. Um, it's remarkable. It's as an astrologer, it's a gift. I see it as a gift. If you actually in if you right now, if you wake up in the early mornings, like between 2 and 3 hours before sunset, we can actually catch them in the night sky sometimes and see Mars. Obviously Pluto is so much further out, but see Mars, see Jupiter in their brightness in the sky. um, and then in the night sky we can see Venus. So the truly um, this interrelatedness that everybody's speaking about, in how as humans we are completely interrelated, is also an interrelatedness with the sky story, with the stars, with the elements as we know. And I find that this tremendous focus um, that we are seeing all over the world with this corona situation, whatever your position is, opinion about it, thoughts about it, the one common denominator is that there is a one focus in the world right now that has not happened, not in my lifetime, not in many of our lifetimes, in a really long time, where all humans are focused on this one thing. And wow, I get so, that one thing touches me so deeply, that experience of the seeing and the imagining and the envisioning what that is and what that could be for so many things in the world if we had that one focus for our evolution, for our rebirthing into the new world, into a new consciousness, into a life that is so much better for us and the earth. Um, and so, coming back to this configuration of planets, these four major planets, these are some of the most important planets in the solar system, now joined by Mars, which is a much faster planet, are together. And these are the, very briefly, but these represent, the principle of expansion, the principle of understanding the big picture, the principle of regeneration, death, rebirth, transformation, of pulling from, unearthing from the roots, what needs to come out, what needs to be cleansed, purged, released, regenerated, and then the sense of authority, of, of our inner authority as humans, as earth, and where the true deep question of where do we stand, and being able to stand in our own authority, in our own ground. Um, the theme of boundaries, the theme of really confronting um, a deep test, a deep initiation, really. And all of these are in Capricorn. which is, as I love my friend and brother Matthew Stelzner. He said, as the, we're something around the lines, we're visited by the the elders, the grandparents, the visit of the elders, something of that sort. And I really agree. It's it really speaks to the fact that we're being asked to get deep under as humans and see everything that we're made of, really. Um, and in that included all of our shadow, all of whatever is living underground that we have not been willing to see, to accept, to be faced with everything that all the consequences of what we have been planting, cultivating, living, and to experience it as a portal of initiation, to experience it as a maturation process of us as humanity. And that's where I do also agree with many that this has the potential of an incredible initiation. Um, and because a lot of you are people that come to do the breath work, who want to do deep inner work, on a personal level, this is, and wherever this configuration of planets is falling on your chart, each of us has a different chart, so this configuration will fall in different parts of your chart. Um, it really is calling in for focus, for this incredible focus, for stabilizing, for really giving focus to what has importance, and for doing that deep work, for doing that deep work of getting in there and seeing what doesn't work for me anymore. What do I have to release? Where am I not being responsible? Where am I not taking responsibility for myself, for my life, for what I'm here to be in the world? Um, and to really almost like acknowledge that elder inside of us that can midwife the the birthing of this world, the birthing of this life, and the birthing of our true essence that wants to come forward, that wants to come, to be birthed. Um, and so there's so much more around this. Obviously, this is a very brief sharing. What I will say is that these four planets also inside of this next week will be joined by Venus as well in an harmonious aspect. Venus is love, is connection, is creative process. So it's clear that there's an element that I find is being shown all over the world of the goodness of us humans, on so many levels, of our longing for connection, for and how a lot of us are being confronted by this distancing piece, and what does that mean? And for some, it's being actually really helpful, really supportive. So all in all, there's the beauty of the confrontation also coming forward of the balance between giving and receiving, the balance between connection, the how can we infuse the energy of love and into difficult times, into times where we have to take a journey into the underworld, both individually and as a collective, into what doesn't work anymore. And we really are having to see that on so many levels. And lastly, I would say that the other bookend of this week is the new moon coming up on the 24th, which is in Aries. And Aries is a moving forward sign. It's the momentum into the new, into the future. It's the new beginning. It's the child. It's, how when a little plant births, it doesn't burst in hugeness, it everything starts in those small buds. So perhaps an invitation as well to appreciate What is birthing from that very, very gentle, small bud inside of you, inside of our collective, in the middle of this incredible shakeup, where it doesn't matter what happens with the virus when it ends, or I feel like we've already been changed forever. There's a change that has already happened in human consciousness. Um, and so I feel like this invitation of the new moon is a day where you could sit down and do a meditation, a reflection around how would you like to move forward in new ways. Perhaps it's inside of still the context of this new reality that we have with the virus for now, but I would really invite it in a deeper level for your life. Um, what is almost like a new way of thinking into your future, into what you want to bring for your life, and to perhaps, as also one of my, I was in a group with one of my mentors, teachers, Mark Borak's friend. He was talking about the union of the elder and the child, and how can those be together inside of us. And so I want to offer that as well as an inspiring image of we're facing that in humanity as well. Some very child, immature places of us as humans still, and so much to learn. And yet the elders and all the learnings we have had from our history, and what can we pull from that to bring us into the here and into the future, um, and to allow the other last um, big teacher that is in this configuration right now, I find are both Uranus in a very potent place of Taurus, which is a very strong way to find our roots in the earth, and an invitation to find our rooted self in the earth, in our bodies. And then Neptune in Pisces, um, in the imaginal realm. So to hold that all is possible, that as humans, one of the gifts that we have that probably no other being has, or that we know in the same way, shall I say, because we know so little, is the power of our imagination. And that during these difficult times, using our imagination is such a helpful thing to imagine the new future, to imagine health for all beings, and not to worry for those people that might be thinking that I'm ignoring the intensity that of what is happening. I'm not, but I feel that the sky story is inviting this conversation between having our feet very grounded on the reality of everyday life, and the movement uh, of all the circumstances we're having to face, staying in connection with what science is saying, the medical groups, all that. Nothing wrong with that. And it's also inviting us to stay in that deep communion with Earth, to stay in that deep listening conversation with Earth. She guides us, she tells us. And if we listen, and we haven't listened, and this is an opportunity where we can stop and listen, truly, truly listen. And I find that the busyness of the life out there doesn't allow us to do that. And actually, for some, it might take quite a while to be able to listen, because there's so much activation, so much movement, so much to do, so much to take care of for some. But in the case of those that can, to be able to stop, to listen, and to imagine, um, in the moments where you have a moment, to notice what your dream world is bringing, to make a picture, to perhaps create a collage, a vision board, to connect with people that you feel match you in, and you feel real exchange of connectivity, and dream together, imagine together, get in, together with groups where you can imagine what this can bring us into, are all very healing tools. And I think I will stop with that. I will perhaps include another little video of a beautiful practice that I learned this morning from someone that he said we could share, so you could do it as a practice for self-care. And the other one I'll share that I'm doing every day is I'm getting up every morning to smoke my chanupa, my pipe, and make prayers. And I'm doing it with the sunrise. And for those of you that are not early birds, you can do it with the sunset or during the day, but just standing and, opening our arms and letting the sunlight just for a few minutes really bring into your body, into your, especially if you're feeling a little depressed, a little down, just having your eyes open and letting the rays of the sun, they go directly to our brain, and it's really equal to melatonin and to dopamine, and it can really feed our brain system. And I do a practice I was taught from the Chinese practice where you let that sunlight come directly into the center of the brain and then really go all the way down through your feet, and your feet connected to the core of the earth. And it can really nourish the soul, nourish the brain. Um, and so yeah, just a little practice, to as a reminder to stay nourished. And to I'll end with feeling that even though yes, there's a lot of intense pieces around this configuration, but I, maybe because I have so many planets in Scorpio, um, but I get very excited in a strange way when these dynamic energies are inviting us for awakening, for rebirth, for um, and not that I don't underestimate at all the moments that can be hard. Um, However, I do truly feel that there's a portal right now that is opening for us, and that we have entered. So, whether you believe or not in whatever is your holding, um, we've entered that portal. And so many of you are connected to the holotropic breathwork work, and a last helpful tool could be to go back to some of Stan's writings around the cartography, around the different stages that we go as human beings go through, um, just to remind ourselves of the large story, of the large cosmos story. I tend to sometimes forget it when I'm in a lot of pain or when there's too much out there, and it's always helpful to come back to it, to remember that we are being invited to this big journey. And as an astrologer, I really do believe that we chose it. We chose as a soul to come and do this journey of transformation together. And I find that especially this North American United States culture is right now being very confronted with the isolation that has happened, and the isolation that a lot of people carry inside, and the invitation to connect in new ways, to seek each other, to ask for help, to ask to be together because you're feeling alone, like all these things. Um, I've had a lot of pain, a lot of years as I've lived in this country about this particular theme. And I'm touched to see how it is waking up that topic of connectivity in a really strong way right now. And whatever is happening for each of you in your country and your part of the world in its own uniqueness and nuances, and in addition to the bigness of the world consciousness, is we're in it. We're in the journey, um, and I like to see these unique configurations on the some level as a gift, that the cosmos, the this this dance that we're in, um, is bringing, is showing us. So be well, everyone. I send so much love, and I look forward to some breath work with you. Oh, I didn't mention that. I would like to say that, as you know, some of you are breath workers, some of you are breathers, longtime breathers, some of you have been on my list and haven't made it to breath work. Because of the intimacy and the nature of the work, clearly we had to cancel the workshops even before the gatherings mandate was put out. And But we look forward to coming back. I feel this is a very powerful tool for our times. And so, for those that are on my list and have been wanting to breathe, I'll be sending out reminders once the collective is in a place where we can go back to breathing again in the holotropic way. In the meantime, um, just come back to your own breath. It's very helpful right now. It's the lungs of the world that are being compromised, the lungs of the humanity. And so I feel we can help it if we take some deep breaths individually, to just keep our lungs engaged, to keep them healthy, to taking the breath of air when you're in nature. Um, and then to, in your imagination, I imagine the lungs of the collective, taking new breaths into new life, into healing, into purging, and into opening. So that's another way that we can use our breath. And I'll be sending out some invitations that perhaps we can gather through the virtual world to do a little bit of that. Ah, deep breaths, and be well. Let me know how you're doing. And until we meet again, much, much love to everyone, and beauty.